Hey, how you guys doing? Welcome to the Marvel Hacks, presented by Brothers Comics. It's our X-Men 97 recap, y'all. You woke up this morning at midnight Pacific Standard Time, and there was no new X-Men episode for the past 9 weeks, 2 months that you had been blessed with X-Men episodes on Wednesday mornings. We got a pretty full crew here tonight. We have to make a believer out of a long time abstainer from this podcast. On the line is Brother Beavis. What's happening?
Hold up. I don't abstain. I don't
Hey, what's up?
abstain.
Yes, yes. And then, as you can see, if you're on YouTube, Hutch is back with us. Say what's happening, man.
Greetings.
Well, okay, so you have to start from you can't get to the end without starting from the beginning. So, if you've been a listener to us for a while, you'll know that Hutch really created blasphemy by actually saying the original X-Men, the animated series, was not good. And he was almost ostracized from this community for that take. But we allowed him back, but he has been
thanks.
away from X-Men 97, just kind of on the periphery watching us talk about it. Is any of that untrue?
I was highly toward the end of the first series. I was done.
Mm.
And that's kind of the memory that I have. You guys talking about this series? I've watched the threads. I've seen the quote unquote spoilers.
Mm.
I still haven't.
But you didn't just stand up for your option. You like actively trashed this show. Like
when y'all put it up against Batman animated series, yeah, Batman wins.
I don't know if we ever put up X-Men 92 against Batman the animated series. I think it was more like, hey, we're all X-Men fans.
Right.
This show is a fairly decent representation of that fandom, and it was enjoyable for 3.5 seasons.
yeah, I'd rather have a decent X-Men show than a great Batman show.
Ooh,
but the fair and balanced side of this podcast acknowledge that Batman was a good cartoon, but the other side of this podcast had to throw mud and rake muck and
yes,
cast aspersions,
Look,
use harsh language.
yes.
I got in on the X-Men when it was quote unquote the new X-Men when it was good.
Mm.
I think I did. Yeah, when Wolverine and the Hellfire Club and Wolverine and all that.
Well,
but yes, sir.
But over the course of these 10 episodes that we've done, like, we expressed our trepidation about them relaunching this too. Like, I'm not so sure about this. What are they going to do? And we said maybe 2 podcasts ago, we were unbelievably wrong. Like, we couldn't have been. This was Avengers Infinity War levels of wrong. Whoa. Of how we thought going into it. And whereas the finale we're going to discuss was, I would say, maybe one of the weaker of the 10 episodes. It wasn't bad. Like, would that be fair, Brother Beavis?
Yeah, I think I think the revelation that they just like one too many cliffhangers of cliffhangers that weren't particularly interesting. I think if they had stopped at a certain point, I think I would feel a lot differently about it. But
right. Yeah, that's fine. Again,
it's season 6 of Game of Thrones.
No.
Yeah, I mean, we're literally picking nits, to be fair. So this becomes kind of comic booky, nerdy about things that we talk about, and I've seen it a few times at this point. Like, there's nothing technically wrong with it. It's just, they set the bar pretty high, and, trying to stick the landing was going to be a little bit much. And I think as we get into this here coming up, that they were picking at it themselves too much instead of just letting it play out. So, all right, let's get it going. So here's the setting of the show tonight. We're going to recap the finale. We're going to talk about fan service throughout, because this episode is probably a good representation and a bad representation of fan service. And then where does the show go for season 2? So season 2 is technically already in the can. They're doing the fine tweaking of it at this particular time, but there is no release date set for it yet. It will also have a different showrunner or the primary writer on the show, which we'll talk about throughout this as well. And, so there's some challenges probably a little bit for season 2, but probably the biggest challenge, Brother Beavis, is it uh, being tested against season 1.
Yeah, I would agree, and particularly with the creative change.
Yeah.
I think one of the things we were unsure about was like, what are the stories that are left to tell? And I think they did, they did touch on some classic stories, but I think in a lot of cases they updated them, they weaved them into the continuity they were telling here. So I think they started to take materials and really get into that mid range like 90s stuff. This is starting to branch off from the classic Claremont era, and they've got. I think their options now are to like kind of pull pieces of stories or use it as a general premise and build on it. But
yeah, this is Avengers 2 after Avengers 1
Yeah.
kind of situation. Yeah.
That's not a good lead, sir.
Yeah.
Well, but it's because, again, we could argue about how good or bad Avengers 2 is.
It's bad.
But its biggest issue is that it's not Avengers 1.
Yeah.
That's the biggest issue, because
Well,
that movie was so good, and then part 2 is, not as good. To be fair,
it's
different
too wide.
podcasts.
That's what it is.
We'll do too much. Different podcasts be arguing about Avengers 2. Here we go. All right. So Tolerance's Extinction, y'all. Part 3. We start back in Europe. So Hutch, each individual episode, you can tell something is going to happen with that particular person on who does the previously on X-Men. So before episode 9, where Logan got his adamantium taken out, he did the previously on X-Men. And then I do believe Charles is the previously on X-Men this week. As they get into that, and before you get into the new theme song and all of that. So we're back in Europe after the war. Charles and Magnus, which he always calls him Magnus, he never calls him Eric. And they're talking about, their life and, hey, I could potentially, what if I were a mutant? Or, what would happen with these particular people? And Charles admits to Magnus that he is a mutant. And, Magneto does the same thing to him. He has this great line in there. He's like, what's your power? Metal. And, Charles is full of the dream even at this point. And he goes, minds are harder to bend than metal. Like, he's literally letting him know, like, this is going to be a battle between you and I about this whole bit. And it's almost a direct lift from this thing from right before Legion Quest. Did you catch that, Brother Beaver?
Yeah. Yeah. No, this is I like the transition from like the shock ending with the still shot, lifted from the books, and then get it right into something familiar to where like, this, because I was like, well, where do they go from there? If you go to the immediate aftermath of that scene, then, I don't know that works, but this was a good intro.
Yeah. It was getting to that point. And so when we did X-Men 25, which is the last part of Fatal Attractions, where this does happen to Logan, the TV show ends on Logan getting his stuff, ripped out of him. It doesn't go to the second part of that where Xavier loses it and, winds up mind wiping Xavier. But they do get to it.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of pleads to him on the astral plane, like, look, you can't do this. You need to like fix what happened on Earth, and trying to plead to him. And on the astral plane, Magneto's like, nah, son, like that's not going to happen. Like, I'm not doing that. Why do you keep sticking up for the genetic inferiors? Like, he's just like, no. And he's like, either do it or I'm going to take control of your mind and do it for you. And just like in the comic book, that's exactly what happens. He gets into Magneto's mind, he takes his powers, and he winds up, restoring power back on Earth, which has the most Xavier consequence of all time. So,
bad luck Shepherd.
Well, he is. I mean, and that's, and again, the dream is built out of arrogance. I mean, we've talked about this too. It's built out of arrogance. This is like, dude, like on Earth, there is a whole dude that controls machines that Magneto completely shut down by doing this. By turning this back on, you are going to ignite this freaking, Operation Zero Tolerance again with no plan in place to stop it. Would that be fair?
Sounds very familiar in another community. But yeah, sure.
Yeah, and Cyclops had shut him down once already. Like Gold Team needs more time. Like or like Xavier was ready for this. He was like, I'm about to take these powers. I'm about to fix this Earth. And Cyclops shut him down once, and then he got to the point where he was going to do it no matter what.
Yeah, it's
Xavier's ego is huge,
Mm-hmm.
and
yes.
he's his own worst enemy.
Yes. And so again, jumping forward and back at the same time, it's just like, okay, so we know when he mind wipes Magneto, this eventually will wind up leading us to onslaught. Like that is the punishment essentially for that. So, keeping that in mind as we're starting to move forward through this. But again, right out of the book, I mean, the animation in this, Hutch, is beyond. Like it is beyond anything that you could think of, at least in terms of the original cartoon. It's great. I can't think of another word to describe it other than they put a lot of money into this.
Yeah,
The animation
it
amazing.
started with the same style, but then they crossed over into like the giant size X-Men outfits. They've got Jean in green,
Mm-hmm.
Cyclops with the full blue hood and the yellow panties,
Mm-hmm.
uh, Rogue in her like original villain
Yeah,
costume,
Brotherhood.
even Sunspot in the black and yellow. I think is a lot better than the blue and yellow. I do like.
Yeah,
We argued about that the last time, but
yeah.
the black and yellow. The problem with the New Mutants was not their costumes. They
No.
had many problems, and their costumes were not
Yes.
one.
The problem is the New Mutants. All right.
And then all their elbows and shoulders and hips and ankles work. They can
They,
actually move and
they're not
fight.
stiff.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So you can have
It's good
one
to
more than one thing moving on the screen at a
yeah.
time.
Yeah,
And
see,
they're
you're
going to
cracking
get
on the stuff that I remember. Yes,
Yeah, the
yeah.
animation was not the strength. That was acknowledged. Check
Yes.
right.
the tape. Roll the tape. Check the tape.
Yeah. And again, we're talking something that was 1992. Was that
There
20
was
plus years ago?
Japanese were making great videos in
Yeah.
anime 25 years
The
ago. If you put
Japanese were
money
not
into
making.
it, it'll
Yeah,
work.
but there was
They
no
didn't make
money
it.
for
They didn't
Fox
make
doing
it.
that at that
Right.
point. All right, so back on Earth, the power is restored, and then Bastion's going to monologue here, which is coming up momentarily. But this starts the run of the cameos.
Mhm.
All right. Okay, so this is the initial fan service conversation here. They fully established that the X-Men are in this extended MCU animation universe. So that's understandable that you would start to see some of these characters populate. That's fine. I didn't really have a problem with that. But they really took it like to like it's like, man, another one, another one, another one, another one. And it's just like, man, I don't know that was fully necessary at this point.
Yeah.
Like it was established. You could have done a couple of establishment shots with street level heroes or whatever, but they went all the way in. Would you say, Brother Beavis?
Yeah, and the funny one here is why does Doctor Strange do surgery with his superhero outfit on? But whatever. There's some that make sense, right? Like
Yeah.
the Omega Red and Dark Star. Love me some Dark Star. The Alpha Flight team with half mutants, half not. The the Rogue cameo teasing Magneto's extended family.
Yeah.
And they and we've Cap's been on here. That's fine. Spidey was on here. That's fine. Everybody's all nuts about that.
Yeah.
Just Mary Jane being there. But yeah, Daredevil, like that was a stretch.
Yeah.
No, and then no pun
Yeah.
intended. Fantastic Four. I mean,
Yeah.
they felt like they specifically were like, no, it's all these people.
Yeah,
Cloak
we're all
and
here.
Dagger.
Yeah, we own all these properties now. Cloak
Yeah.
and Dagger populated in there as well. It's just like, oh, okay, like I got it. Yeah, we understand, man.
My
Golly.
question is: was this show made for people that were around in 1992 or through
Yes.
97, or
I
was
think
this for
so.
kids?
It's
Or younger
definitely
folks?
not for kids.
Yeah,
Nope.
no, there's blood and dying and
Yeah, a
and
couple of curse words in there as well.
and-
Yeah, like
and
it is not
scenes from
for
books
kids.
that kids cannot afford today. Yeah, no, it's definitely not.
Hmm.
At least initially, I don't think the initial target is a new a new set of preteen viewers.
Yes, and then there's some fairly creepy scenes in this shit
Oh, yeah.
too. Yeah, I mean, there's some like, whoa, hey, that is not gonna work on Saturday mornings without
Norman
scaring
Bastion
kids.
Bates torturing.
Yeah,
people,
there's a
things
couple of
creeping
like weird zombie-esque type scenes that are kind of scary-ish, or for a cartoon.
Mhm.
We'll get back to the one of those other cameos here in a second. What I did like is that they did establish that the Avengers are here, at least with Iron Man and Captain America from the '90s cartoons.
Yeah, that's the
And
crappy
they're
Iron Man
useless.
design from his crappy
Yes, and
cartoon.
they're useless.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah, the Avengers are completely useless, which is what they were in the '90s. Completely useless. So I did enjoy that part. But back to the show.
And this is where I started to think like, oh no, they're gonna do the thing.
Which thing?
Because they have all the heroes now
Oh,
for
your
the
heroes.
yeah
Heroes.
for the tease the run in into Heroes Reborn. I was like, oh
Okay.
man, they're gonna do the thing. I don't know that I want that.
Yeah, sure. So Xavier restores power on Earth. Bastion gets all of his powers to wake up his cyborg zombies and the Sentinels again. He run downs Xavier for being stupid. Like, your dream is gonna get you all killed, you idiot. Essentially. And good. And then he relaunches the attacks on the mutants, while since he gets his powers back.
Sounds very
I put the wrong word here. I meant to put Ultron. It's the Ultron principle. He starts the monologue, and basically what he's saying is like, you know what? The way this has gone, what I found out as a half machine, half human, is that like humans are good, but they're too good. So we got to kill all of them to save them from themselves, essentially. I mean, that's basically what he's done, and that's what he's going to do. And, that's what's going to happen. And the cameos continue. We get this Black Panther cameo in Wakanda. All right, so I have a rant coming here. All right, let me adjust myself, and also let me put a pause in here for a videotape or a short video. Okay, so online there's this discourse about since before or after Chadwick died about T'Challa, and it was a hashtag. It's recast T'Challa. After Marvel made their thing, we're not going to recast him based out of respect, based out whatever the reasons that they weren't going to do that. We get Black Panther 2. We can debate the quality of that movie as the good or bad or whatever, with Suri assuming the role, even though it's fairly comic book accurate. Blah 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 blah. So the online discourse at the end of this show was, oh, well, they used T'Chaka, when they get into the Magneto Protocols part, but also forgetting this part where this is clearly T'Challa, clearly, like that's on Wakanda. So, so 2 Black Panthers, okay, not unheard of necessarily, but
Mm.
And
but
why
it's
they
just
got to
like,
show up to the UN meeting in a cape?
yeah.
Right. Somebody, right. It really, right. A couple years ago, the Black Panther had boobs. So,
Yes. I mean,
right, and was white. So,
yeah,
what at this point, what's the matter?
yes, I mean, so the recast T'Challa people are absolutely out of control. This is essentially T'Challa erasure. They're erasing T'Challa from here. Like, this is they're just downgrading the character and blah 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 blah. Let me just say very very succinctly, please shut the fuck up. First off, a lot of y'all people really didn't care about the Black Panther before because there was no reason to care about the character. Y'all are lying to yourself. If you're gonna go like, oh, I'm gonna pull out these fire issues of Black Panther from whatever, I see Hutch in my periphery agreeing with me. You're gonna be like, oh, I'm gonna pull out these fire issues of Black Panther. Shut the fuck up.
He is.
He is a tertiary character. Go
At
ahead.
best, he was Tommy Rich or Ron Garvin. At best.
Could you come up with a comparable black wrestler, please?
A common black wrestler would be what? Damn, that's. Ooh.
Come back to it. I'm just saying, like, there was.
I gotta think about it. That's a problem already.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, it was like, look, the character. The MCU did a great thing by building that character up and making us care more about it than the comic books ever did. He's been better in cartoons. He's better in Earth's Mightiest Heroes. Those comic books, we tried to read them, when Ta-Nehisi Coates relaunched that book. It's not great, and then you could take
free.
Yeah, you can take it like we read those books, we reviewed them. It was like, like it was too much political drama, not enough him being a comic book character. Let's not even get into the storm and the wedding thing. Like,
he's wasabi.
Exactly.
Just a little bit.
Like, this is not T'Challa erasure. He hasn't been erased. He's dead in the 616. That's it. They literally gave you another T'Challa at the end of that movie. They did. Like, what do you? What,
they'll go for it
of
too. I mean,
course, they can.
I'll watch it.
Exactly, multiverse it. He could. Come on, man. Like, seriously.
I
Like,
mean,
just calm
I missed
down.
Chadwick Boseman, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's no how. If you watch this and was like, "Oh fuck, man, they got T'Challa ain't in there because it's T'Chaka." Come on, man. Like, seriously.
Don't get too deep.
Of all the things that are happening in this cartoon, this is where you focused on. Yeah.
Can I throw it? How about Ron Simmons?
That's where I thought you might go.
Yeah. That's a fair one. I'll take it. All right. Sorry. I just can't. Those people. I had to block so many people. I am Phoenix. So as Bastion is about to launch his re-attack on the Earth and humans and mutants alike, we get the hot tag save, Brother Beavis. It starts like with birds flying out of trees and the shaking on the ground, and the Phoenix effect essentially comes out of there. Not necessarily Jean in the costume as the Phoenix, and she comes out, makes the save because Cable was about to be killed by Bastion's robots or whatever against Sinister's objections. And she comes out there, puts the scrambler on Bastion, and pretty much wipes it clean. Shuts down all the robots, shuts down Bastion to a point there. What about the reappearance of the Phoenix? I was hyped.
Yeah, and they've set it up now to where like she, in a sense, is all of them, right? Because she has Madeline's memories, and she can apparently call on the Phoenix. So that's consistent, I think, with where we are in the books, and probably like the basis for going forward.
Right.
And that's what I think. That's what I think this show is doing more than anything, is like tacking on all these little bits of the characters. It's like that. Yes, Scott is this person who shoots blasts out of his eyes, but he also did this and this and this and this, and Jean, so I think they're accumulating all these side stories to get all the characters, like even at the same power set, same appearance, same costume, like that depth of the history that they have in the books.
Yeah.
So is this like classic X-Men where they're kind of putting stuff together on the sides and adding the classic shit or the actual comic book to it as well?
Yes? Question mark? Like you're going to recognize things that come from decades of books. It's kind of like a mix together. Like this idea of this idea of the Phoenix living inside of the Phoenix entity living inside of Jean that she doesn't necessarily control, but she also kind of does control. Or it comes out when it's absolutely necessary. And in this situation, she had been, almost killed in the previous episode, and she was resurrected by the entity.
Yeah, like Cable is in fact the child of Madeline Summers and
Scott
and Madeline Pryor and Scott Summers, but instead of like him leaving Jean, she's a clone, and he doesn't know. He doesn't know. So they tell the whole story like
Scotty
he doesn't have to abandon Jean, and they still get the lineage. Right. But it's not Apocalypse that infects him. It's Sinister infects him with the virus, and he goes into the future. But then when he comes back, he's under Sinister's control with this Red Diamond protocol, which is from a book that came out 6 months ago.
Correct.
So.
And the Phoenix says she cleanses everything, and she takes all the DNA that Sinister had been. I mean, this was kind of dope. All the DNA that Sinister had been collecting inside of himself, and strips it all of him and takes him back down to, he's born in the 1600s or whatever. Like, he becomes this old, feeble, like types of man that he runs off from. I mean, it was like, again, I watched this at 5 o'clock in the morning when it first came out. And the Phoenix is coming up. I got hyped. I'm getting goosebumps talking about it now because I was like, yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
Anything to kill Sinister is good.
Yeah.
Well, I think they did a lot.
Is not the Sinister you're thinking of either.
I think they did a lot to like actually kind of explain what he is. Like in the original run, he was just a big bad who inexplicably looks like Colossus with some stripper boots on. and has ambiguous powers.
Frankenfurter.
But they've more explained it here, where it's whether or not he's a mutant, it's just genetic experience, a genetic enhancement that he's put on himself, which was his whole goal for getting the cable in the first place. So
Yep.
They still has a sort of ambiguous power set, and not something we've seen in the book. But they sort of they to me they go more into like, what is Sinister, what is his backstory, what is his deal.
Yeah. And he gets a chance to show off his fighting skills in episode 9, Hutch, which is, I would say, I think we said it on here too, it's probably, if not the best, one of the best animated fighting scenes for a Marvel DC kind of comic book thing between him and Jean. It's an amazing fight, for sure. All right. So yeah, so that's where we are. There's their cloak and dagger thing. I started to put some of these things in here randomly. And then, Bastion strikes back, so he has his powers taken from him with the psionic scrambler they bring back, Hutch, from like the Dark Phoenix thing to put on him that takes his powers. But, once he's down, but he's not actually out, he, attacks Cable, takes his arm, absorbs whatever powers the machinery into him, and upgrades himself completely. Well, he upgrades himself completely, and then he heads off to Asteroid M to, take that down and have it screaming towards Earth, because he knew it's going to destroy everything there, And again, we get a big comic book fight. Like, once he gets to Asteroid M, it's on like Donkey Kong. And, he first takes on Rogue, and Rogue pulls out the name was Gambit. Remember it. Yeah. And she like cold clocks him, and they have this big fight on Asteroid M that winds up on the blue side of the moon cameo. I was just like, was that necessary too?
This is where they started to lose me.
Yeah.
And there was in an earlier episode when Wolverine and Nightcrawler were fighting, they get like knocked out of the window, and there's like a jump cut to Jean and Cyclops getting knocked out of a window with a force field. And I was like, wait, did somebody put a force field on? Like, there was like action didn't make sense. Mm-hmm. But the idea here that they go from Asteroid M, which is just barely lifted into orbit, to the moon, and then they're falling off the asteroid and making it back to Earth through the.
You're astronautish, or you're.
Yeah, I know, and I know, from talking to my daughter, you're like, what? Everybody can breathe in space now?
Yeah,
like, no suits, no.
I was, and speaking of throwbacks, I think we were remiss that there was a joke with when Beast does what's the sound of one hand slapping.
Oh yeah,
and he hits the Sentinel with his. I was like, I'm hoping that somewhere in that writer's room they were like, can we use, what did the 5 fingers say to the face? Somebody had to have suggested that. Yes. No, we better go with this one. So.
Oh, and one of the things I skipped over too was Storm when the Phoenix came back, like the giggle she gave. It was like perfect.
That's your ass.
Like, that's your ass. It was great. Like, well, you're done.
She didn't do a whole lot in this.
No, and there's a lot of online discourse about, it's like, hey, y'all gave her powers and then kind of sidelined her for the rest of it, which is, I mean, it's fair, for sure. And then you took her big story and cut it down into something, but we talked about that. And so while this is going on, Xavier and Magneto are discussing, the astral plane, how to do this, and Xavier's trying to bring him back into the fold. Like, look, don't succumb to the waves, to the pressure, to all the things that, have taken you there. I'm going to be with you. I am your hetero life mate. If I go down, you're going down. I'm going down with you. Like this, we are a partnership together. It is me and you, no matter what. And
they're both straight at this point.
Well, maybe, but they were just really trying to. But here's if they did anything good in those X-Men movies, and they did, the established relationship between Xavier and Magneto is the best part, especially in the latter movies with McAvoy and whatchamacallit. Like, those are by far the best parts. So, like, I think establishing that here is probably a good thing, and when it gets to the end, it obviously is going to make more sense. But I thought this was pretty good too. But yeah, it was starting to get to that point, and then it just keeps kind of going. And it's like, man, y'all really didn't need to do that. All right. So back on Earth and on the astral plane, that's still happening. So the world leaders are going to initiate the Magneto protocols to take down Asteroid M. Like, that's there. Again, Captain America and Iron Man just standing there like some bitches, basically. like because the Avengers are useless. They are absolutely pointless, and I think that was definitely done on purpose, especially for the '90s. Let's just show them there. Just okay, like yeah. How's Nick Fury not making an appearance in this? By the way,
He's a spy. He's doing spy shit.
yeah, but he's all over like the Magneto protocols and X-Men, like that whole thing.
Yeah.
He's all over it. I mean, it's
Him,
Well,
not like you
that
don't own the character.
him and
yeah.
Coulson are fighting Hydra.
Yeah.
So what? Yeah, I'm trying to think of how does this align with the MCU because it was Captain Marvel was early '90s, right?
Mhm. Yeah, that's right. And
I mean,
Nirvana was
obviously it's
out.
a different. Obviously, it's a different
Mhm.
timeline, but like if that's roughly equivalent, I don't know. Maybe they weren't ready to negotiate the Nick
The
Fury
Right.
white
used to
black
be
Nick,
white
When,
white
story.
black
Yeah,
Nick Fury. Yeah.
like when Galactus shows up, the X-Men and the Avengers don't show up. It's just the
Mhm.
Fantastic Four.
Right.
Right. So yeah, just one of them things.
Here's an Easter egg from TikTok if you're on YouTube or whatever. Again, I don't have a TikTok. This was explained to me by a teenager. So it looks like Magneto's Marvel card when they're looking at his file for the Magneto protocols. But on the blacked out portions of the names there, it says the aliases of the actors
yeah.
there that played him in the movie. So
Like
one of them
Michael
is like
S. or
Michael,
Michael
scratch it
F.
out.
Yeah.
And then with Ian, scratch it out,
Yeah.
further. I thought that was kind of cool when it was
I
pointed
was
out to
like,
me.
"Is he? What's he got? Some monstrous on here?" That
Yeah,
I
exactly.
was
But
dying
that's
for
what
them
I
to use
saw.
the
Yeah, you
RPG.
look at the names. I thought it was a Marvel card.
It's
I was
like
like, whoa.
fighting agility. Oh damn, they didn't do it. Shit.
Yeah,
Is that the phase rip system?
yeah. And again, we're still Magneto. Don't fall into the darkness, and we alluded to this one from before. One of his memories there, where you finally see Scarlet Witch, Quicksilver, and then Lorna's in the background too, all shaded out with Rogue.
Mm.
There. I mean, again, like okay, the allude to things are absolutely perfect. I'm not gonna lie. It's like, yeah, we need to get that back, but it just seemed like so much, man. It's like, man, I like it, but it's just a little bit much. All right.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't hurt anything.
Yeah. All right. And together we will resurface. That's his line to Magneto. We're going to resurface. If we get swept under, I'm going to resurface. I'm going to be with you, and we're with you to the end there, dude. And and we get more comic book fights.
Yeah.
All right, Hutch, you're not gonna like this part of it.
Well, check out
Jubilee.
those uniforms, Hutch.
Yes.
I'm working.
Yes. Jubilee gets the big wrestling push in this thing. And I don't think I'm speaking out of turn here. She's great in this. Like she's great in this episode, and then over the course of the series, they matured her enough to the point where she's not annoying.
Mm.
And this is like Kate Pride for us in those X-Men books recently. Like it's like, man, I hate Jubilee.
Wait till
What?
this whack ass Marauders book.
Yeah,
This is
exactly. These are the
kinda
best books
good.
in here. Yeah. I mean, am I lying? Is Jubilee's really good in this?
No, I mean, so the funny part is like, they in this case, the reluctant teen learning to use their powers is Roberto, and
Mhm.
she's she's his interface to the team. But yeah, no, there was no argument about whether or not she was going to go with him like they had in the previous series. Like, you're too young, you have to stay behind. So no,
Yeah.
she was full on, and then she got clown. Like Bastion was clowning her. She's like, "How about your face?" Like, blew them all up. Yeah, so,
I think the line was, "What are you gonna do? Hit
yeah,
me with the 4th of July?"
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it was great. And and then as he's starting to fight back, before we get to that point, Kurt is like going at him, teleporting him all over the place
Mm.
too, and Cyclops is unleashing absolute nothing but full fire optic blast. And the animation, it really looked like the Marvel versus Capcom game.
Yeah, I was not happy they did the let's fire our beams at each other and see who can
Oh
hold it.
yeah.
No,
That's-
yeah.
But it was the way Bastion ultimately got around that was he created a bunch of small targets and Cyclops can take them all down. So
Yeah. Nah,
that was cool. But I was
it
like,
was
no,
cool.
don't. Oh, they did it.
Yeah.
They did it.
Well, I'll get to it near the end. And so, as Bastion, he's not giving up. I can go all day, essentially, as his robot self. And Beast comes in, controlling the Sentinel, kind of crashes down on him, puts the boot on him, and he's trying to get up from it. And then they're like, all right, well, he's not going to quit, so we're going to have to take him out. And as they're all kind of firing up for that, Scott's like, pause. No. It's
Can
more
we
important to
roll?
preserve. It's more important to preserve the dream. We're going to teach, what we've been preaching to humans all the time. We're going to, not run away from the future. We're going to embrace it. It's a great freaking Captain America speech that he gives to the team. Like, absolutely, Hutch left,
He can't
and
take it.
yeah,
He can't believe
he
Cyclops
can't
would take
believe it's
such a
actually
thing.
good. And so he does that, and by the time that happens, the Magneto Protocol rockets go there, hit the core, and then we're back into the this freaking thing's going to fall to Earth and take out and kill absolutely everybody. I mean, did I miss any part for that?
No, and I think that was that was just like this is escalating. Like, how are they going to do this? And like you're starting to
Right.
think that what does Magneto is going to have to come around and save the day, but where does that put him relative to everybody else? And so I thought
Yeah.
like the twist of like we're not going to win this just by hitting it hard and using our
Mm-hmm.
attack powers. So that was a very X-Men thing to do.
Yeah. I thought that was great. I was like, the Alpha Flight cameo there kind of threw me off. I was like, okay, Puck, Aurora, North Star, Psylocke, okay, and then who is that? Cecilia Reyes,
No, it's Cypher.
Cipher. Oh, that's right. Yeah. Mm.
The internet
Why is
had to
she in
tell me
Alpha
that.
Flight?
Um,
Okay.
uh,
Yeah, let's check. All right.
why?
Yeah, that's fine. So, and then that's really how it gets to be. So the asteroid M is careening towards the Earth. Like, oh no, oh my God, we got to figure out a way to stop this. They don't think that they're going to be able to, so some goodbyes have to be made. We'll do them in order, and then there's the rant number 2 here. So on the astral plane, Jean and Scott say goodbye to Cable, and he's sitting there kind of nursing his wounds,
Because he fell off the asteroid and landed on the Earth already, so he's fine.
He's like, no, he wasn't there. Remember, he was already
Oh, that's
in.
right. He didn't make it to the
He was
asteroid.
in
It's
Brazil or
Roberto and
whatever. Yeah, yeah,
Jubilee
yeah,
are going to fall off to
yeah.
make it to the Earth.
Yes. There, you got you've always said you have my eyes. He dropped the "I love you, son" in there. Mac, Cyclops kind of full circle. He's like, I didn't want to. I didn't want to be a shitty father like my father. And then when you got sick, I had to send you away, and I kind of became a shitty father. But then once you've come back, he's trying to do everything, to kind of make that right, which was pretty good. And then the other goodbye is Morph saying goodbye to Logan as Jean, and essentially saying, I love you as Jean, to him. So the online discourse was like, well, was he saying that as Morph, or was he saying that as Jean, or was he saying that, as Jean, but really for Morph? And so, okay. Logan's been
Just
alive
rain.
since the Civil War, man. You don't think he dipped his wick with some other folks that wasn't necessarily, you know what I'm saying? Like,
That's not where I thought this was going.
yeah. Well, I mean, honestly, no. To be fair, like, okay, so they established that Morph was what, non-binary or whatever. I mean, if you look over the course of the original series, he's even only there for a couple of episodes. I mean, there is a friendship there, and Morph. Yeah, I mean, there's a friendship there. They've kind of established in the comic books that they're Scott, Jean, and Logan are in a throuple. So it wouldn't be out of the ordinary that maybe Morph had some feelings for Logan that were beyond teamship feelings. But people are like all in their feelings about that. Like, honestly, do y'all really care? Like, honestly?
Yeah, I mean, I think this was a case where I think what ends up on screen is open to interpretation, right? And so you can say like, oh, he's just being supportive, and the
Right.
best way he knows to do that, the thing that's going to be the most emotional resonance if he's there as Jean, because Jean can't be there. That's one interpretation.
Yeah.
The other interpretation that Bodemeo supported was no, that was Morph saying "I love you" as Morph to Wolverine, which is true. That's not and was that going to lead to a relationship between the two? Probably never in the show, right? But it's fine. Like Morph loves Wolverine.
Yes. And again, that love doesn't necessarily have to be a romantic type of love. It could just be, I love you, man. Like, it's two dudes, even though he said it as Gene. But like you said, like, oh, this could also be from the fact that, that person means the most things to him for sure. Like, it's not like that, as he's completely unhealed after what Magneto did to him. So it's just a mess.
So it's
all right.
But I would say it's also like a lot of I think a lot of the cases where what these are, did they just scenes are a lot more stealth than this, and
Yeah.
you know, if this can, you know, this can be explicitly interpreted by somebody who's looking for that message in the show and probably resonate and
Mhm.
great.
Yeah, and then other people
and
could
and
be looking.
and if you turn, and again, like we started this whole series, like if you got this far, you saw that and you turned this show off or went
Yes.
and blew up Twitter,
Yes.
you're watching the wrong show to begin with.
Yeah,
You just
exactly.
wasted 10
Yes.
weeks of your life.
Yeah, there's 400 listens on one of our YouTubes where we argued against idiots about the X-Men being woke. Like, like seriously, like you've never read these comic books before, or you completely missed the whole point of the idea of this. So whatever. All right. So the other cameo there that was happening while this thing was falling to Earth was Peter and Mary Jane from Fox in the animated series Spider-Man. There. But remember, if you have to remember Mary Jane went missing at the end of that series.
Yeah, that was another show that didn't get better as it went on. I
Yeah.
remember her falling through a spot, but I
Yes.
think it was more than that. I think she came back and there was a clone of her that died or something like that. And
Yeah.
he had
Yeah.
to go fight the Secret Wars, the Secret
Yeah.
Wars
Secret War. There.
to get Madam Web, the greatest cinematic success in history,
Mm.
to help him navigate the multiverse and find her. So apparently he found her.
Yes. Side brother
That's
topic. Has
miserable.
anybody seen that? Has anybody seen that yet? It's on Netflix.
My sister saw it. She said it was bad. I was like,
Yes, well,
"This is
shocking.
these are facts that were available to you in advance."
Right.
Yeah, I was just curious. I mean, it does have hate watching potential. That's for sure.
I mean, I watched that Morbius
You
movie,
watched
and it was
Morbius,
not
yeah.
as bad as the discourse. It's a bad movie. It's primarily bad because Jared Leto is insufferable, but it's not as bad as the internet led you to believe. It's just a bad movie.
Just a bad movie.
Yeah.
Got it. All right. And then boom, as Magneto finally succumbs to the water, Xavier is able to stay with him and pull him back. And that's, I am Magneto. And he's able to use his powers to save the Earth and move Asteroid M back into orbit. And it's like, yeah, everything is good. And then it's not. Boom, we're gone. Like the Asteroid M disappears into space or into nothingness, and it's gone. And it's like, oh, righty, what happened here? So we have mutants left on Earth, and nobody knows where they are. And then we do a jump cut to 6 months later.
Yeah.
And, there's like, hey, 6 months after they called it the E event?
E-Day?
E-Day, yes. Okay. Yeah, they called it E-Day. And they're gone. I know that there's a reference to Santo Marcos or whatever, or St. Marcos is like an island where they're welcoming the second coming of Magneto. In the comic books, that's run by Acolyte, who didn't. He made an appearance in here, but I thought he got killed on Genosha. Because he's in Genosha when that happens.
Fabian Cortez?
Oh, am I get that wrong?
Well, I don't know who's Acolyte.
Not Acolyte. Oh God, what's his name? The other Acolyte.
Fabian
they made him
Cortez is the
dance.
guy who charged him up.
They had him dancing on Genosha.
Oh, Exodus.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah, so yeah, there's that. In the other news, Graydon Creed was leading in the polls. And then Bishop shows up. He's like, yeah, we got to go in time to go save the X-Men again. And, Bishop had been gone for a while now, too. So we get the fake.
It doesn't
Days of
Forge
Future
like,
Past.
who are you? Like, he hasn't read every, like, he can't, he talks to machines. You're telling me he doesn't have, like, the consolidated history of the X-Men at this point. Bishop shows up and he doesn't know him?
He called him by his first name, too. His government name. Yeah. Hutch, we get the fake Days of Future Past board there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do get that,
And there's your boy.
He's alive.
I haven't heard one mention of my boy.
He's not in it.
He gets morphed. He has a morph cameo. So something you might annoy you is morph power transforms into various heroes and seemingly gets their powers when he does so. So
I heard about somebody big and green.
Yeah.
Yes, Hulk did make an appearance.
And then I believe he said morph smash.
Yes. That was when he was talking to Logan. All right.
Yeah. And if they had ended here,
yes, would have been fine.
Probably would have been fine.
Yep, I agree. And again, This is because this is an awesome callback too, but from the Days of Future Past
Right.
cover, presumed dead, off Earth. Like, I mean, it gives you some of this, and then you're
Yeah.
like, okay, so these might be some of the mutants that we're working with when we do come
Right.
back for season 2. And
And
essentially, you have a version of X Factor here.
right, X Factor and the White Queen has just been restored, so they could
Right.
shortcut the New Mutants because they got Bobby and Jubilee, and
Mm-hmm.
they could go into Generation X.
Yep. And Magic is here as well.
Magic's
Colossus is here.
there.
Like, I mean,
Think we've got
and Kitty
teased, I think,
Pryde.
Cannonball at one point, so they could absolutely like establish the junior team could be a
Mm-hmm.
major storyline for next year.
Yep. I mean, again, it sounds like maybe there's parts of this that we're like, oh, we're just mad that there was too many cameos. I mean, that's essentially it, really. They didn't need to do it because they had established so much already. They didn't need to go over the top. And I think I texted you or whatever. I was like, they did this as if they weren't getting a second season when we already knew they were. It's like,
Mhm.
oh, well, let's throw everything out there just, to say that we did it. But they didn't really need to do it.
Mhm.
And it took away, a little bit, not a lot. It just took away a little bit from all the established stuff that they had already done. So, all right. So there's 2 post credits, or 2 times and a post credit. Yeah, sorry. 2 books, 2 series that sucked.
Yeah.
Honestly, if you can even remember them, Hutch, you can jump back in here now because you probably read some of these. So the 2 teams get split off. Rogue, Morph, Beast, Magneto, and Xavier get pulled into the past with the first rising of the first mutant at the Rise of Apocalypse. He drops the
Awesome.
name, the En Sabah Nur, from essentially this miniseries. And then Cyclops and Jean get pulled into the future where the clan Ascani, where those books where they actually raise Cable in the future themselves. And I think it's the Adventures of Cyclops and Jean Grey.
Mhm.
These books suck.
Look at that art.
Yeah, the Cyclops and Jean book is absolutely awful. At least
The Rise
Apocalypse
of
is.
Apocalypse wasn't great either.
Yeah,
No,
these
and
are not.
I
Yeah,
don't think
go
it
ahead.
has anything to do with the X-Men either.
Right.
Right. They're just, I don't know what they are. They're just paper
Right.
waste. That's what it is.
Yeah. So that part, as Brother Beaver said, was like, man, if you had just ended on there, we would have been good. These 2 other scenes,
I
future
mean,
stories of the X-Men, not always good. Everybody, oh, Days of Future Past, Age of Apocalypse. Yeah,
That's
but
about
you
it.
also have this
Yeah.
and that.
Well, and the other thing too is like the pacing on this show is an issue. Like not
Mm,
just this episode, but the entire thing, because they've jammed so much into some of the episodes. But they have frequently then, taken an artificial break in the story to give it at least some time to breathe before you jump
mm,
back into it. And I think not giving that time to breathe for, oh shit, where did Asteroid M go?
mm.
And then teasing 2 bad stories, like that's not great. That's when Wolverine and the X-Men ended with teasing Age of Apocalypse, it was like, okay, when does season 3 come out? Spoiler
Mm,
alert, never. But that was like teasing a really exciting phase of a show. That's a good way to end a season.
yes.
Teasing 2/3 of the story because, oh, by the way, we don't know what happened to Wolverine or Storm
Yeah.
unless that's because in the original series they had the storyline where they were together in the sort of bootleg Days of Future Past from
Yeah.
One Man's Worth or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's the jump over point, and Bishop's now back from when he was in the time stream or whatever. Maybe that's why they've broken up to tie into those parts of the stories, and they consider that already kind of established.
Right.
But you're going to tell 2/3. You're going to tease 2/3 of the team's story with bad teases,
Right.
while kind of saying the world is moving on in interesting ways without the X-Men, which should be the main storyline.
Yeah.
I think they should have stopped.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, again, if yeah, whatever. The post credit scene, which a lot of people missed on the initial run. There, Apocalypse shows up to the ruins of Genosha. He finds Gambit's, Queen of Hearts card. He's, and drops the line about death. Now, I guess there are some comics where Gambit did become the
yeah,
angel.
Yep.
One of the
He is-
horsemen of death. I
yes.
did not read those.
Yeah, it's
They're
not
awful.
wonderful.
Yeah, this is in a, I got kids and I got a bi-formula phase of my life, I believe. So, yeah, I didn't get those.
Yeah, I
So
mean, it's kind of one of the things that we could see. Either they're going to do something timey-wimey, or Apocalypse is
mm,
going to bring him back. So
yeah,
we hit that one. Like all of our predictions have not come true, because
that's,
we were debating whether it was going to be Onslaught or Age of Apocalypse, and the
mm,
answer was not really either one of
yeah,
them.
not really. Yeah, I mean, so that's what I'm saying. Where do we go for season two
Yeah.
here? Like you could technically do a version of Legion Quest, which leads to
Ugh,
Yeah.
the Age of Apocalypse, kind of,
ugh.
sorta. You could do Days of Future Past because you did just make that as establishment, at least on the poster there. Onslaught seems to be possibility at this point as well, but you
Well,
did just establish these, a Scotty Sun and Apocalypse, and which I don't think anybody would really want to see.
unless at this point, unless Onslaught exists separate from Xavier, then I don't
Mm-hmm.
see how they can do it, because that was the setup and they didn't pull the trigger.
Yeah.
But they've almost, Hutch will get this one because he has read a gang of terrible books. They've almost set up like a West Coast Avengers story where the team is split across time and then they have to like get back together.
Mm.
Like they're just missing out on the old West part with
And,
Mockingbird and all
yeah,
the
and
every pistol toting.
where's Captain Britain showing up and
Yeah.
all that horrible shit too? Ugh.
But
So
that's what I'm saying. Like, you're gonna get into season two, you have a different writer, and then you just put like a classic album on wax here. Like,
mhm.
it is no skips really.
Yeah.
Honest, there's no skips. Even the episode with Jubilee and
Yeah, even the Mojo episode
yeah,
is
it's
not bad.
it's not bad. It serves its purpose and it's short enough and it's done in segments. Like, there's no skips. So
Yeah.
that means you're trying to
A question: did
so
any of your children watch this?
mine.
Uh,
My
Everybody that has
daughter
children on this
did.
podcast.
My
Did they
daughter
watch
woke
it?
up early in the morning to watch it with me. Yes.
my daughter saw, like, she saw one. I think she was like, "That's all right," and then she started watching another one and she left. So
Yeah. Okay.
Right. Hmm.
Yeah. But
So
to be
this
she was
fair,
like,
story,
"It's pretty cool," but then she left. So
okay. But to be fair, the age difference between our daughters
mhm.
is one thing, but two, my daughter's into the lore of this, like, oh, what comic book is that from? Oh, let me go read Fatal Attractions. Let me go,
Mhm.
like, she's watching these episodes and trying to figure out what's happening in the comic books to try to figure it out. She's different in that regard, not necessarily from Brother Beavis's daughter, but just in general, because this show isn't made for teenagers.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah,
It's made for people that saw the original series.
yeah. It's not made for the TikTok generation.
No, it is
right?
definitely not.
But I mean, and you two have bought in, and I guess on the average they've bought in. But yeah, these are the people. These are the comic book guys.
Yeah, it's
The 40+ group.
it's made for the people that's paying that bill for Disney Plus.
Hmm.
That's who it's made for.
Yeah.
That is exactly who it's made for. It is not made for any other people from that. And we talked about that when we started this. We were like, I don't know who this is made for. Are they trying to like get new kids in? What they've done in Disney's past, they've taken like really good cartoons and then Disneyfied it, hashtag damn Disney for Hutch, and ruined them. Like, this was not that. And I don't even think that's even a thought for this. This is like, hey, we're making an homage to that original series and making it, or an attempt to make it better.
I talked to 20 somethings at my place of employment,
Mm-hmm.
and this don't come up at all.
Yeah, I wouldn't think this. You had that growing up on the original series. That would be my guess. So I'm interested. Time travel stories for the X-Men. You do get some good ones, but you get some bad ones too, like Ascani's son.
If they can
So yeah,
make that,
nobody
they
wants.
can make Legion Quest and Age of Apocalypse something.
But
Rise of Apocalypse.
they have so many. They can mine so many stories that they haven't done yet, even though they forced a bunch of stories in there. I mean, they called something a mutant massacre when it wasn't.
Mhm.
But I mean, you could still do a real Proteus story at this point. Like, I mean, that's available to you. You could do Legion Quest. You could technically do Days of Future Past. Like, I mean, you have a lot of available information to you. And hell, they started this whole thing out essentially on the Grant Morrison books from the early 2000s, which we hate, and at least made it plausible. and digestible, to get through. So I mean, I'm excited. I do, like I said, I keep saying, been saying this for the longest time. Somehow, whenever this movie comes out, and they're gonna be like, "Oh, the X-Men, they were on Krakoa," and that is essentially now Krakoa has become essentially the Holy Grail Phoenix Saga type of situation for the X-Men. Like it really has, because even though it ended shitty, it initially started out very, very good. And, I think that's somewhere that they're going to wind up eventually, whether in movies or in this cartoon. So, all right. Fan service, y'all. So, it's good and bad. This episode has some good fan service in it. Hey, that Days of Future Fast, that's good fan service. That is absolutely cool, because you really have to have been a fan to understand that and catch that for sure. But why do we have Cloak and Dagger and Daredevil in this?
Because
Like, for
they
real.
push those series and they'll try to push them again.
Okay.
There's a new Daredevil show coming out.
Yeah. Is that the synergy? Is that the synergy?
Right.
So, like, if you're on YouTube, like, so John Krasinski, hey, man, you're going to be, everybody, you should be Reed Richards. Reed Richards, he shows up in that Doctor Strange movie. That's fan service. Okay. Because you really had to been a fan and on the internet to understand where and why that was in there. Okay. That's okay. Xavier shows up in that same movie. That's bad fan service, because it wasn't necessary. It was just like, oh yeah, we can do this because he's here today.
That's Disney putting their dick into the butter.
Huh?
That's Disney putting their dick in the butter.
Yeah, I understand, but that's what I'm saying. Like, in this episode was kind of full of that. It's like, oh yeah,
Disney said that Disney is the Illuminati, one world order. They own everything.
Right. But establishing, oh, Magneto has 2 kids that he has a strange relationship with. That's why they're like off to the side or whatever. That's good fan service. You got to be deep in it to understand that, like, for sure. But there's just other instances where they just kind of went like, why is that in there? It wasn't that. Oh, we have Alpha Flight, but we don't really have Alpha Flight. We have Aurora and North Star. But what you could get the trademark on the Canadian flag or something, like you couldn't show. Like, why is that even in there? Explain it to me, somebody.
You gotta make your Canucks happy.
Brother Beavis.
Somebody wanted it.
Right. They're
but who?
Available. They're cheap and easy.
Yeah, I mean,
they should all be free at this point for Disney.
Yeah, I mean, you have to assume that they're going to reappear in some capacity.
Right. There's an end goal. If we're making movies about the Marvels and other shit and the Eternals, then these other things are going to show up too.
But
no one's going to watch.
But Brother Beavis, how were they able to show such restraint 9.5 episodes through?
Yeah,
you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean we saw what, half a dozen people prior to this, right? We had an actual appearance of Captain America, a voiced appearance of Captain America.
Mm-hmm.
We had Spider-Man, Doctor Strange.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even look
Morph's
at
little cameos or whatever, which made sense for the story, right?
And I don't even look at like Omega Red as a cameo. That's he's a villain. He's
established.
Assumingly they'll probably try and tell one of his stories at some point. But yeah, I mean, they just
Deadpool. I heard,
yeah. I guess it is weird that there is not yet really a shared universe in the MCU, but there so very clearly is here.
Mm. Yeah. I just think they had a good story there. It wasn't necessary.
It was a lot. Like I said, when they started showing all the heroes, I'm like, okay, now we have enough non-mutants to sacrifice themselves by going through the portal and actually defeating Onslaught. But the Onslaught is like a story that's more about the other heroes than the X-Men. Right. So it would be stupid to do it. But I thought for sure for a long time that's where we were headed, and I'm really glad that they didn't. Like I told you when I watched this, I was like, I liked a lot of things they did. I liked a lot of things they didn't do. But I don't know. It felt kind of like unfinished. I don't know. To me, that's what it was. Like, the cameos didn't cap it off. It made it feel unfinished.
Yeah.
Teases for the story.
Yeah, it was like, man, that wasn't necessary. And you hadn't done any of that, not any, but like you very rarely done any of that through those 9 episodes. You had kept it focused on the X-Men and things within there, and then it's like, oh no, we got to establish this world here. Like I think we all kind of knew that was in this world already,
Yeah.
and you didn't need to go over the top, and they just took it over the top. But again, not bad. If
Now
you
your A-Force fan service moment, like, the whole back half of Endgame was fan service to the
yeah,
22 movies
Oh,
that preceded
it
it.
was
yeah,
too much.
But you're gonna have this girl power moment with like 6 R's and no I and girl power in a series of movies where basically all the female characters were marginalized and they straight up killed 2 of them in this one.
yeah, yeah. It's
That's
yeah.
weak.
And again, the other again, if you're on
Plus
YouTube, like
Pepper in this Pepper in the fucking
yeah,
Iron
that's
Man armor
terrible.
has to go.
And then, and the other one that I have up here, if you're on YouTube, is the Spider-Man one, where all 3 of the are together. I mean, the whole movie is kind of fan servicey, but you knew the moment was coming, even though you didn't know that one of the, leading up into the movie, you suspected the one was in the movie. So it got the pop that it needed because it wasn't like smacking you in the face.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it was the whole premise of the movie, and it
right.
wasn't just like cameos from them two. It was the entire cast of all those movies.
So it's just it can go either way, and sometimes I think it can go even like how you feel when it actually happens. And like that morning watching this show, I was not like ready for all of that. On the rewatch, it still is like hitting like a hammer. It's like, hey, by the way, we're all in this together. We're in this universe together, just in case you didn't know. And it wasn't necessary.
Yeah.
So that's basically it. All right.
And and Cap did, like, Rogue did already go after Cap for not caring about mutant problems, and they just made it clear there's a whole lot more people who don't give a shit about mutant problems.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's comic book accurate, at least.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, again, they've talked about they're trying to do a season 3 and 4, doing them back to back. I don't think we're seeing season 2 of this until probably sometime late into 2025. That would be fair, I think. I don't think it's happening this year. The Marvel projects, they've been very clear that they're trying to scale back on this stuff and not just throwing out content for the sake of it. So I think you have like the Agatha series is after Deadpool and Wolverine fan service, a whole fan service movie. And so, I think, it'll be later in. I think there's a what if season or animation that's going to come out of there that also has the X-Men in it too. So, like, I mean, it's 2025, probably around the same time this one came out.
It's this time next year.
Yep. And, so Hutch, if I'm ranking this, if we're doing 5 stars or whatever, this is a 4 3/4 star show. Just not giving it perfect because
that's high
because it wasn't in Tokyo Dome.
Yeah. 4 3/4 is still 5 stars. Dave Meltzer scale. But so it's
essentially
it's not perfect, but it's damn close.
4 3/4 stars is
damn
fun.
close
The only
to
thing
perfect.
missing is
We argued on here. We argued on here prior to this finale. I can't think of another adapted comic book thing that's better than this Marvel thing. That's better.
Marvel, man.
Well, any comic book thing that's better. Like, oh yeah, that's really good. Okay, yeah. There's some great MCU movies, some good ones, but they're like, oh no, it's heads and tails better than that. I don't know, Brother Beavis, help me out here. This is a almost perfect showing of a show.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that's just is still weird is just the pace they burn through it. Because it feels like they used up a lot. Because we were struggling to figure out like what are the stories they're going to tell, and they went through a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you want to ding it for that 1/4 star for being like, damn, they told freaking Storm's story of losing her powers in essentially 10 minutes. It may a little bit longer than that, 15 minutes over the course of 2 episodes. Yeah, okay, you can ding that. That also depends how you feel about Storm's losing her power story and getting them back. You know what I'm saying? So, they called it the Mutant Massacre. That wasn't the Mutant Massacre. Again, you could comic book nerd it and ding those things for that. That's fine.
Yeah.
But
But
what
they,
was actually put on
they kind of
screen.
ate Mohawk Storm in
Yeah,
that process, and they ate 201. Thankfully, they
yeah,
swallowed 201. Thankfully,
yeah.
so they,
Cyclops doesn't lose
yeah,
the X Men.
The
Yeah,
the trial of Magneto at the beginning.
they did that.
yeah,
Yeah.
they did do it, but they did
Mhm.
it to the best of their because
Yeah,
that's a terrible, freaking not terrible story, but it's not
Fenris
a great
didn't
story
appear. That
anyway.
was an advantage.
That was
Yeah,
off that uniform and everything else. Ugh.
Oh,
yeah. It's just
That
I'm,
that right
I'm,
there is worth a quarter of a star. So that gives you about
yeah.
a
I'm,
4.5.
I'm saying if for some reason that wherever you're staying is like, man, I have nothing to do for the next 4 hours and I don't feel like going out. I'm sick. Like this will eat those 4 hours very, very quickly, and you will be perfectly fine with it by the time you get done. Like there's nothing literally wrong with this whole series. Nothing. Nothing. We try like we don't, we were we kind of rank it or whatever. Any cartoon that you want to put up against it from comic book adaptation, it can hold its own very easily. I can say there's no comic book series, and I'm just like, oh no, like it's so much better than X-Men. No, you can say, oh, I like this one better or whatever, but so much better, can't do it.
But in as a whole of all the cartoons that we've watched, this is top 5.
Don't make me do top fives, but yes,
Yeah,
Hmm.
yep, by
it's as
far, and it
it's
ain't
as
five.
it's as good as the best parts of Justice League, Earth's Mightiest
Justice League
Heroes.
Unlimited.
Just yeah, it's the best parts of those, and those have some dogs in it. And
Mm-hmm.
don't try and tell me Batman the Animated Series doesn't have some dogs in it.
It's
Mm-hmm.
So
got some Bow Wow,
yeah,
sure.
Yeah, I would say, and this is because it's the team aspect and it's Marvel too. Earth's Mightiest Heroes was one of my favorite freaking cartoons, and it again, it's only one season. That one only I think got two, but it's better than that.
hmm
It's better than that, and
Better than
that's real.
Wolverine and
And Earth's Mightiest
X-Men.
Heroes is very good. Like that's a no skip show too. It doesn't
I
have a
mean,
lot of skips.
and I think the one that what this show does better than that is the emotional impact and the sound. This it's just the sound of is just repeatedly blown away by the
Yes,
the
the
music
score.
and the sound and just the visual effects.
Yeah.
It was
And
great.
you'll hear, and you got to pay. It's deep cut. You got to be paying attention. Like so many different versions of the theme song are playing during like parts of the show. They'll play it like they'll run it down slow. Like I mean, and then there's other parts of it's just like yo, you can hear it in the background. It's like, and then the voice acting. We talked about this too. It's
Solid.
they did it up tough. Then they have that like all access thing for this show. That
Right, where
just
you talk
premiered
to
on Disney Plus.
everybody.
I watched it today. It's fine. What's funny part is the voice cast was at MegaCon when we went in February or whenever MegaCon was, and like they're literally on there telling the exact same stories that we heard in that panel. And I'm like, I just heard this.
Mhm.
Like I have it on tape. You can go to my YouTube page and see it. Like where they were talking about it. And I think they had to replace a couple of the voice actors. Cyclops primarily because the guy passed away, and then they replaced some of the other people with some of the other characters. And your boy Nightcrawler is a full-fledged member on this for essentially the last 5 episodes of the
Well,
team.
yes, but the one person that I really like
No,
got
yeah,
deleted for
I still don't
more.
understand why they didn't put him in, but
yeah.
maybe
But
that's the
season two.
Omega Red story coming.
Oh God, please don't. But yeah, maybe season 2. But yeah, I can't. I think we've been recommending it for you for 2 months, Hutch. I cannot recommend it any more strongly.
Uh-huh.
Just throw it on. You won't even be upset from episode 1. You'll be like, whoop, yep, I'm hooked. Yep, it gets you right from the beginning. There are no skips. There's like, oh, I'll skip that episode. No, you can watch all of them. It'll be
I
fine.
think the Colossus cameo is episode 2.
There you go.
Cameo.
All right. So
Oh
that's it
yeah.
for us, y'all, for this. Our next comeback will be coming back to the alleged good comic books that inspired this series from 1997. I got that in the tank, too. Yeah, there's just not great books, y'all. They're just not. Oh, and by the way, this is coming at people are like, oh yeah, now reboot that Fox Spider-Man show. No, don't do that, please. That's not needed at all.
They have an animated Spider-Man in the work. It's called The Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man.
Oh, do they? Okay.
Yeah.
So. Of course they do.
Sensational Spider-Man clears every single one of them by far. They just took it off of Disney Plus for some reason.
It doesn't have the Neogenic Recombinator though.
Ugh. Yeah, they just took Sensational off for some reason. I have no idea why, but yeah, it was on and then it wasn't. But yeah, y'all are living good, y'all. If you're, I don't know, if you're under the age of 30 from somehow listening or watching this, y'all have no idea how good y'all got it because it wasn't always great. Don't let anybody tell you like, oh, it was good back then too. No, it wasn't.
There was a period of time where there were 3 X-Men cartoons, 2 of them, well, 4, I guess. One from that '60s show. 2 off of Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, and then the alleged pilot, if it does indeed.
You saw it.
Yes, it
lives. Not like a UFO.
Yeah, I mean, it lives.
It was verified.
And there's a throwback to that in there too in episode 7, it was 8 maybe. It's the first part of the big Tolerance's extinction. So good stuff. But yeah, we'll be back after that, y'all, and then we'll slowly crawl our way through some of these terrible comic books and wait for this season 2 sometime next year. All right, y'all. As the producer of this podcast, I'm signing off. Brother Beavis, go ahead and sign off.
All right,
are you gonna watch it? Hutch, are you gonna watch it, man? You got my Disney stuff.
I got a whole weekend to do something.
Hey, don't admit that.
I got 4 hours.
I don't generate. Yeah, there you go, man. Just to, we're gonna have you on an addendum episode. Be like, yeah, I watched that shit. And if you get on here talking about it sucks, it's an absolute mute.
This is America.
Oh God, America. There's no way. There's no way. There's no way that
Loser Leaves Town podcast.
Yeah,
America.
There's no way you can get on like, oh, it sucks. So, all right. So everybody, thank you. Rate, subscribe. We'll see everybody on the other side. Peace, everybody.
Good night.